Where the God man them there? Well, the God man them in other place. Yes, it's February 21, 2024 in Kingston, Jamaica. And welcome. This is the mailbox here every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. unless it's a holiday. Now, love encompasses a range of strong and positive emotional and mental states, from the most sublime virtue or good habit, the deepest interpersonal affection, to the simplest pleasure. An example of this range of meanings is the love of a mother differs from the love of a spouse, which differs from the love of food, and most commonly, love refers to a feeling of strong attraction and emotional attachment. While Hebrew and Greek words for love have various shades and intensities of meaning, they may be summed up in some such definition as this: love, whether used of God or man, is an earnest desire for an active and beneficent interest in the well being of the one loved. Different degrees and manifestations of this affection are recognized in the scriptures according to the circumstances and relations of life. Example, the expression of love as between husband and wife, parent and child, brethren according to the flesh and according to grace, and finally between God and man. Listeners, according to the Caribbean Home Economics in Action Book 1, the term family comes from a word which means household. Today, family means a lot more than household, of course. It means a group of people living together, usually related by marriage, kinship, blood, or adoption, and sharing their resources and responsibilities. The family may be a big one or a small one, depending on the number of children. Finally, the single parent or one parent family, the extended family. Sometimes you may hear families identified by other names. For example, you may hear the terms foster family, sibling family, blended family, or a new extended family. So, the family is the smallest building block of human society. Man and man from Morton Point to Negril. My name is Kevin Bailey. My co-host, Courtney Morrison, in the place. Courtney.
Well, go on, Kevin. Good afternoon, everyone. Blessings to you all, to those on our Facebook page and YouTube, to our listeners on radio. Love 101, celebrating 31 years. Indeed, we're stronger together. So, to all our listeners, thank you for making it Love 101, your station of choice. We're talking about men, love, and family. Love is one of the most profound emotions known to human beings. How do men demonstrate this emotion? How do they care for others and communicate, which are important for fostering healthy relationships in the family? Those are some of the questions we'll be asking and talking about today on this program, The Mailbox. Indeed, this is a program hosted by men with guests who are men, and it happens every Wednesday at 5:30. Hey, Kev, what go on?
Yep, there. We have a very interesting guest this evening in the form of Mr. Dwayne Taylor, Minister and SCFSU board member. Just a little bit about Sir Dwayne Taylor. Dwayne Taylor is a sold out man for God. He has been an active servant of Jesus Christ for over 3 decades. He currently serves on the board of the SCFSU, works closely with UCCF, University and Christian Colleges Fellowship. He has had a passion for raising young persons into the full potential for God's purpose. He majors in prayer and deliverance with strong foundation in the Baptist Church. He's a member of Fellowship Tabernacle, where he serves as a minister. He's not a man who likes titles and he shy away from them. However, I must tell you, he's married for over 10 years to Jovian, the love of his life, and has 4 children: Krista Joe, John Daniel, Kelsey Ann, and Luke Gabriel. He has a master's degree in technology entrepreneurship at University College in London, one of the top ranked global university in 2011. He also took a course in project and portfolio management at the highly ranked London Business School. While in London, he attended numerous business workshops and seminars and interacted with some of the world's top business executives during this period. He has participated in numerous entrepreneurial focused 3-day workshops, including one hosted by Google executive Eric Ries called Lean Camp in London. While employed to the University of Technology, Jamaica, for over 2 decades, Dwayne was a noted member of the Planning, Development, and Technology Division. He worked in the Information Technology Unit and has received awards in 2003 and 2008 for his outstanding service. Man and man want to tell you he spent a lot of time reading, researching, and analyzing local and international businesses with a view to understand and apply business process management skills. He served on the University Board of Management for over 10 years with private and public sector leaders. What a wonderful guest we're going to have this afternoon here, Courtney.
Yes, indeed. A friend of mine, he is. Remember him quite well. He's not taller than I am, so and I'm not tall. So we want to welcome Sir Dwayne Taylor, the husband of Jovi and Jazillian Taylor, 4 children. Fascinating gentleman who do not allow his diminutive stature to fool you. He's a giant in his own rights. Dwayne, how are you? Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Your mic is muted. There you go. It's unmuted.
Yes. Good afternoon, and I am. It's a pleasure being with you, Courtney and Kevin. When Jermaine invited me, as I said to myself, "Boy, I can't miss this one." So I'm very happy. I know, as Courtney said earlier, we go way back, and definitely, Courtney has been, I would say, a mentor, and at one point, somebody that I would have liaised with literally every Friday to listen to and to reason about many different issues. So I'm really grateful to be a part of the program today. Thank you for having me on.
Wow. So, well, you're in good company. And so, really great to have you. We look forward to a very interesting, informative conversation with the man them. And
Yeah.
we want them to listen up. Just want to say, ladies, Wahuna say, what are some of the things that can be done to support our men? We want your responses to that. Please let us know what can be done to support our men in caring for others and communicating, which are important for fostering healthy relationships in the family. You can participate in the program by leaving us a message. Please, ladies, please respond because we want to be able to have good men, men of integrity for husbands that you want and fathers for your children and just great men here. So we want to hear your feedback on that. You can share your views on WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube. Remember, no calls or voice notes allowed. Just allow the man them to share this space.
Yeah, and just to add to what Kevin's saying, our WhatsApp line is 876-997-3125. Remember, you can leave your comments there. We usually give a shout out at this time, Dwayne. We usually shout out after we count to 3 and say, Monday! You don't know, so that's a moniker from our own senior pastor,
Yes.
the
Yes.
Reverend
Yes.
Apostle Dr. Merrick Al Miller. And it's something that has really caught on. And so after 3, let's shout out 1, 2, 3. Monday!
Mandela.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the thing set.
Yeah.
As I said
Definitely.
before, we want to find out a bit more about Dwayne. And so we're going into a section entitled The Draft, the direct response for the featured theme. We want to hear a little bit about who Dwayne is. Where was he born? You know, Kevin has this saying, were you born with a gold spoon in your mouth or a wooden spoon? Tell us a bit about your early days and its challenges growing up. Did you envision yourself being where you are today?
Hmm. That's a very interesting question. Who am I? Where am I from? Where am I going? I grew up. I was born under the clock, so I'm a Kingstonian by birth. But the peculiar thing is that I was grown in the country, so I'm a country boy
Uh,
um, by some measure because I was schooled. I went to St. Mary High School. Um, I was a lover of athletics, so I was very strong in terms of school activities. Um, Generally, a household name in the school. For sports, for science, anything that had to do with some level of representation, agriculture. Those were my loves. That was influenced heavily too by my grandfather, who was a farmer, and spending time around him. So he was a, I would say, a strong father figure at the time. So I grew up without a father. My first recollection of my father, the first time I heard my father's voice when I was at 18 years old. It was when I was at Case, so just about finishing. My mom was overseas, and she said, "Guess what? There's someone I need you to talk to. I've just found your father. This is someone that we have been searching for years, maybe the better part of 17 years. So that was I would say a very interesting moment in terms of my own life. I grew up in church. That was a general mantra. My grandmother made sure that I was in church. I took part in church activities, youth president, you name it. So I was very much involved in terms of church life. So regular teen, enjoy life, try to make sure that you fit into the crowd. After a while, you kind of realize you don't fit in because your perspectives and views and values sometimes may differ from the regular crowd. But I didn't let that stop me. I think it helped me to recognize that rejection isn't a bad thing after all. That sometimes you might feel rejection, you might not feel like you fit in. And as a man, sometimes you are different, and you have to recognize and appreciate that difference and what it means to God, and recognize too that it's a tool sometimes for God to use in a special way to I would say to minister to other men. I've always had a man focus, so I've always enjoyed men company. One of the interesting thing about me was that most of my friends when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old were 18-year-old men. They were much older men. Another interesting thing was the fact that I would spend my Fridays at a bar with many men. They were either lawyers, doctors, were whatever profession you would find, teachers. And this was the kind of mental grooming that I had growing up. So you heard a lot about family issues, family problems, man issues from then on. So more so, and yes, I used to take a sip or two. Not to the delight of my parents, I must say.
Mhm.
But also another interesting fact was the fact that I didn't have a father, but I adopted one. And I was smart enough at the time to adopt one. And a good friend of mine, we just became literally like two peas in a pod. At one point, they used to tell us that, boy, they can't tell us differently because we are literally like brothers. Even though, so we used to say we're brothers from a different mother.
Mhm.
But the fact of the matter is that we were brothers from a different mother and a different father. But thanks be to God, at the time, the gentleman, Mr. Gordon, was a health inspector at the time,
Mhm.
really just stood in the place and really helped to mentor and to father me over the years. And that has been significant. So growing up, it's been kind of fascinating. Had a love for science, had a love for technology. As I said, love for farming. That's always been there. And basically move around between Kingston, Mobay, and St. Mary. Those are my three, I would say my three spots where I could say that we had some good time with relatives, whether it be cousins. I was the only child, so I had a strong imprint of cousins, both male and female, that I really interacted with over the years, and they have helped to mold me into the person I am. Not to mention the UCCF and ISAF, etc. over the years.
Thank you, so Dwayne Taylor. Very comprehensive, multifaceted individual. We're gonna get some
Yes.
more in-depth information. So interesting. But we're up on our first break. So we're gonna go to the studio, then we'll be right back. This is the mailbox. Kevin Courtney, Dwayne Taylor, our guest. Back in a moment.
Yes. Strong man, integrity man. No, what It's Reggae Month, and the Jamaica Reggae Industry Association, JARIA, presents Reggae Prayers, endorsed by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport, Wednesday, February 28th at 6 p.m. And what a glory that will be. Come hear the sounds of Levy's Heritage, Sister Pat, Humble, John Mark Wigan, Berlando Small, Odia Spencer Brown, Nadine Blair, and Perpetual Sounds of Praise. Your MC, Yours truly, Nadine Blair. Reggae Wednesdays Reggae Praise is on Wednesday, February 28th at 6 p.m. at the Festival Marketplace at Kingston Waterfront. The Festival Marketplace is situated near the Kingston Craft Market on Ocean Boulevard, right near the Myers Wharf. Easy to find and admission is free. So make your plans to come out in your numbers for a night of worship in the key of reggae. What a night, what a glory that will be indeed. Reggae Praise, Wednesday, February 28th at 6 p.m. Festival Marketplace. See you there. A Love 101 endorsed event.
If you know that this music belongs to the Lord, let me see your hands up. If you know reggae music belongs to the Lord.
The following is a paid announcement by the Jamaica Labour Party.
Your government cares for the indigent and the elderly. We have handed over the keys to hundreds of brand new homes. Vote JLP.
The proceeding was a paid announcement by the Jamaica Labour Party.
Word, Light and Power Victory Ministry invites you to our annual Victory March service in Penline Castle District, St. Thomas, February 25, 2024. We invite residents from Ness Castle, Mavis Bank, Tower Hill, Westphalia, Mount Lebanon, and adjoining communities to be a part of a mighty move of God. Come and hear victory testimonies. Come with your praise and requests. Hear the word from Minister Stanford Bennett with special guests Reverend Gotti Gotti and Sister Nikki. For further information, please call 876-425-9222.
As a fitness guy, I was surprised by my chronic illness diagnosis. I thought working out harder would fix it, but it wasn't enough. Now, my prescription meds are a part of my routine.
When I got my diagnosis, I really felt down and stopped spending time with the people I love. Then I decided not to let any disease get the best of me. And I'm committed to taking my meds as prescribed. On time, every time.
No hesitation. Take your medication. A message from the NHF. NHF is here for health. NHF is here for you.
Receive words of strength from the Voice of Power with Bishop Dr. Delford Davis.
The battle of seed has been declared many years ago and is still raging. I will put enmity between thee and between the woman, thy seed and her seed. A war will be on perpetually until Jesus returns. But I know who has already won the war. I know who has already won the war.
That's the Voice of Power with Bishop Dr. Delford Davis, brought to you by the Power of Faith Ministries International in Portmore. Voice of Power comes to you every Thursday at 9:30 a.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Speak, my Lord. Speak, my... I am a man, I am a man, I am a man, yes.
Welcome back. This is the program hosted by men whose guests are men. And it's a program that's designed for men. It's the Mailbox. I'm Pastor Courtney Morrison, co-host Kevin Bailey here with us, and our special guest, Mr. Dwayne Taylor. This program happens every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. unless it's a public holiday. We're talking about men and love. And what more exciting and interesting person we can talk to more than Dwayne? He has 4 children. Good men has 4 children. Should say. Good men also have 1, but Dwayne, tell us a bit about you getting to this point. You went through high school, you made a decision, you went to University of London, you have gotten yourself involved in so many areas. Tell us, what inspired you? What got you to that end? And tell us how you fell in love or how you met Jovia.
Yes, so the truth is, over the years, I've had quite a bit of, I would call it, failed relationships. And coming out of UCCF, you can't be the chairman for an organization and you don't have a few suitors. So it was a case where I don't think I had a challenge connecting with females. But the challenge was, how do you find one that suits you? And coming out of our teaching from Pastor Miller, one of the things that we had learned I'm coming out of TAM, as you know. One of the interesting thing for me and the driver was purpose, finding purpose, settling in your purpose. And one of those questions that I would often ask most of the persons who would express an interest is, what is your purpose? I myself, I must confess, was trying to figure out mine was. But I had some idea as to where I wanted to go. I had some goals, and so I remember explicitly one of the things that the Lord had said to me at the time was, "Do not marry until you finish your masters." And I was just saying, "Boy, this is kind of weird, but all right, fine. I'll try to work with it." And that over the years, even with many trials in terms of relationships, and even close to the point of engagement, I remember a point when I was in church, and there were about two or three different ladies that I was having serious emotional connections and interest in. And I remember I went to the Lord and said, "Boy, God, which one must I choose?" And after a couple of days of prayer and fasting, I heard none of them.
Oh.
And that was like somebody was shattering my world. And I have another good friend that I used to rely on quite a bit too in terms of sharing some of my exploits. And he said to me, "Boy, um, if God's a nobody, just go and wait. And there's no harm in waiting." And I had a frank discussion with my mother once, and I said to her, "So boy, what are your expectations? What it is that you want to see? What kind of wife do you want to see?" And she really gave me a fair, I would say, a fair list of things that she would want to see. And at the time too, we had started a small men's group at UTech on campus in UCCF. And I remember having a discussion with my good friend Chris Brown. And I remember we were having a discussion. We were looking at, how do we go about choosing women that we felt were, we would say, substantial, women of substance. And it came to a point where we both had to recognize that our list wasn't so much important. It was what God was saying. I think we came to a perspective where we said, "Boy, it's either a model or a mother." And we had defined the model woman as that woman who, she looked good. She had the hottest things in sliced bread. She had the best hair. She had the best skin tone. She shaped like Coca-Cola bottle. All of those kind of things. And very attractive. And most times, those are the women who turns heads. And we said, okay. And then we said, versus the mother now. And the mother was not somebody who may not look as shapely, but she had an inner beauty that for us would have resonated something divine. And we were thinking based on the Proverbs 30:31 woman. We were saying, boy, this woman has to have some serious character that we can rely on, because at the end of the day, it's not about how she looks, it's about how she is. And that entails training our minds to not just to look and become attractive, but to look for the deeper things in the woman. And that was part of that I went into with
No,
my
so
my
you
love
make
life.
this thing sound too sane. Jovian must have listened and say, but the policeman is so calm and controlled about all of this.
But it was easy.
Brethren.
It was easy. It was easy. I tell you this, Courtney. When I was abroad, because when I went away in 2010, I mean, when we first met, I mean, I used to be good friends with her mother, and I remember at the time, I was where they're praying about, finding the wife, and I remember one of the sessions, our mother said, "Boy, doing, I have two daughters, what one?" And I say, so me say, "Yeah, man." She said, me have two of them, you can choose anyone." And I say, "Serious?" And she said, "Yeah, man, you can choose anyone." I didn't take her seriously, I must confess, at the time. But I say, so, yeah, two girls are nice. Them all right, them good to go. But at the same time, I think it was the fact that she knew that I was a tech person, and I think she had asked me to look at a phone for her. And it was in that process of looking at the phone and diagnosing the phone, I think that something sparked, and I think it's from there. I had been back on the island because my grandfather had died, and really was just having a struggle dealing with the death, and I had paused my studies to come back home. And it was during that time when I went back, something just kind of registered in the gizzard, something just couldn't shake, and I decided to say, well, let me give this girl a talk and see what was going on. And so for a year we chatted and see what was happening, and then eventually we just said, guess what? When I came back on the island, I said, guess what? Let us go out. Let us try a thing. So we went out to the movies, and believe you me, there was no spark. I will tell you this. There was nothing special. It was just two people going out. But after that, I believe that something started happening, which kind of said to us that, well, we have something. And for me, I was playing it by the books. I'm a very analytical guy, so I work out, the family background, the value system, kind of make all of the questions and look for all of the different things that you felt would help to foster a good relationship. And the truth is, I was very busy doing my research. But this is someone that I would have spent a couple hours late at night. She would stay up, literally, to be honest, to have these conversations over Zoom or Skype or whatever method we would choose to actually communicate over that period while I was away. So it went well. So yes, I used to keep her up all night. But it went well. It went well.
Dwayne, we have to really rinse out everything, and unpack some things inside of you, because you have to tell our audience, how do men know that this is the one, and what's your definition of love? Because when people are going into marriage, they say, I love each other, but 50% of them ends in divorce. And from your perspective, I want you to kind of help our audience to understand what are some of the fundamental things. You mentioned quite a few, but just to break it down, how does the man know that this is true love and that it will last? And what are some of the things that he would look for in himself and also the other person? You share a little bit about that.
All right. So for me, and in general, from what I've observed from most of the men that I've dealt with over the years, one of the first things that you have to look at is you have to know yourself. I don't think that you can say you love somebody without having a full understanding of who you are, what you're about. And that means clarifying what is your goal, what it is that you want from life, what it is that you're actually looking for, what it is that you believe you actually need in order to quote unquote face life. When I met Jovian, there was a couple of the things that I saw. I recognized that I needed a woman who had her head on her body. One of the other things that I wanted to was a woman who had a strong relationship with her father. Coming out of observations, I would have recognized that a lot of women were struggling with father issues around me. I nicely avoided most of them because of that. As much as they were looking good, they were well educated, they had all that I thought that was on my list, I recognized that, boy, this is a key issue for me, because I recognize that if that doesn't settle, then you're in trouble. And so I did that. To the late Pat Eves, we used to have quite a bit of discussions with her, and we used to spend quite a bit of time. She was a good friend on campus, and because I was on campus working with her too, we have our moments when we sit down and discuss a lot of different issues concerning relationships. And I remember one at the time I was a little bit frustrated because, you're playing by the book, you're playing all of the different things and saying, boy, the woman needs to love you, yes. And I remember she said to me, boy, the woman needs to love you. And I was saying the woman needs to love God. And she said to me, make sure that she loves you more than God does.
Dwayne, stick a pin right there. It's 6 p.m. in the evening here at Love 101, and we're up on our second break. This is the mailbox. We come right back after these messages.
Yes. Strong man, integrity man, I am man.
And he knows my name. Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the Ministry of Counseling and Prayer of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today, 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. It's the Telephone Counseling and Prayer Ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. A reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
When I come to the end of myself, Father, carry me.
All registered electors are allowed time off to vote on election day for the February 26th local government election. Under the law, every employer shall permit employees to be absent from work on polling day for 3 hours in addition to the normal lunch hour. This does not apply to employees who begin work at 10 a.m. or after or end work at 2 p.m. or earlier. Remember, time off to vote on election day is your right. That was an important announcement from the Electoral Commission of Jamaica.
I am a man, I am a man, I am a man, yes.
Welcome back. This is the Mailbox here every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. on Love 101, your family station. Kevin Bailey, Courtney Morrison, and our very special guest, Dwayne Taylor, in the place. If you have just joined us, welcome. And from Moran Point in the Grill, great to have you. We've been having very stimulating, informative conversation. We want to continue. Sir Dwayne, you were sharing some fundamentals,
Yeah, man.
Please continue. Very interesting.
Yes. So some other fundamentals I had, though, was the fact that we looked at the fact that you need to make sure, say, you have a common background, because the value system, I had a 3-point thing that I normally would use to do most of my relationship, and I used to plot my relationship against these 3. Number 1, you want to know that the woman is a solid woman. She know herself, she understand herself, she know what she's about. She have some clear goals, some clear values. She's mature, meaning that she's able to, she have little education with her. She might not have the money, that's fine. But she know herself, and she can represent her ideas very well. I wanted somebody who also knew how to love. And that love for me was important in terms of learning how to give love and how to receive love. And in terms of representing love, and based on the promo for the program, looking at love, for me, love is really a very complex emotion, because it can be expressed in so many different ways. And one of the interesting things I found about love is that we as men demonstrate it in a particular way, normally because we're skewed by our personality. Yes, we're skewed by sometimes the cultural complexity, but also too, we understand that we are on a journey sometime in finding ourselves and connecting with ourselves, and equally connecting with God. And I find that we tend to express love coming from that place. And sometimes for some men that love can be aggressive. For some men the love can be jealous. And you find that you get attached quite quickly, or you want to own somebody quick. And I found that in the genesis of my relationship, I had to go through and process all of these emotions, where you feel very heavily attached. You want to feel like you want to own, you want to be around her every single second. You want to know what she do. You question her, which part she did, that kind of a thing. Because most of this was equally trying to love us out of your own insecurity. And I think I started out on that point of loving insecurely. And I think sometimes I would have projected that on her at the start of the relationship. And processing that, I recognized that, boy, if I am going to love her, I have to put on my baggage. I have to put on some of my expectations of her. And first, let's start with the basics. I find that I used to front load a lot of my relationships. I would bring up all my bad stuff. I would tell the ladies everything that is bad about me. And so you're still ready, you're still interested in me, kind of a thing.
What an interesting approach.
And I remember my friend of mine, a good friend of mine, which you're familiar with, Tamaya. Tamaya being the counselor that she is, she said to me, Dwayne, I don't think that's a good approach to take, you know. You need to give the ladies an opportunity to get to know you, man. You can't front load the relationship with all of the heavy stuff. Take time and allow time to unpack it, man. And I said, all right, Tammy, I'm going to take your advice and work it that way. And so out of that, I changed their tactics, changed their approach, and just to let the thing develop. Jovian, by right, her mother is Brazilian, so she was kind of cultured with some Jamaican, but with a strong Brazilian background. I have a love for cooking. I have a love for tidying up the place and looking after the house, and putting things in order. My friends would say I'm very stoic because, you know, you want everything neat and tidy. And I remember when I invited Jovian over my house one day, and she came into my room and she saw my room, and you could see the look of shock on the lady's face when she realized everything is neat and in full order. And she was literally scared because she was saying, I am not like you, you know, me not so neat, me not so tidy. So I knew that there was a few things that were there to be that we had to work through. But essentially, we started out by recognizing one that we had some common goals, we had some common values, and we had a desire to work together. And I mean, we started communicating, and I find that a lot of times, for me, one of the big factors that used to intimidate me was money. As a man, I want to have money in my pocket, and if you don't have the money, very challenging. And I remember when I was looking at the situation in terms of getting married, looking at life, how am I going to make life? A big part of that for me was how do I earn money? How do I manage money? How do I provide for my family? Because that's a big thing in terms of our traditional approach as men that we have. And I just couldn't figure that out. I mean, it took me a while to figure it out, really, because I was in a job that I was not earning a lot, and I was really studying at the same time. So by the time you earn the money, you go back in a school. And you're saying, how do you maintain and build a family on a shoestring budget? But I recognize that for me too demanded a step of faith. And it says, if you really trust God and if God is in it, and one of my mantra too was this, that if it is the will of God and it's the purpose of God, where there's purpose, there is provision. And I think for me, that was a major thing. And so I stepped out. So we dated, we do our thing. We had our blow-ups at one point. We said we had to call it off because, this now work out. Because you two different. One of the major things that I had as a challenge was the fact that I was a talkative man. And my wife was a quiet lady. So that was a big challenge because here it is that I'm always talking and she's not saying anything, and I'm trying to figure out what is going on with this lady. But over time, I learned that it wasn't that she wasn't speaking, it was just that I wasn't recognizing and reading the body language right. So I learned to adapt and read the language and ask the questions and got some response. So over time, we have grown in that area. And that is a major challenge for most relationships over the years, that I have even helped to listen to some of the issues that we realize that communication is a big issue for a lot of us. A man vocabulary and a woman vocabulary is quite diverse and quite different. And that's something I find that as a society too, we struggle because we tend to draw battle lines between the males and the females. And we tend to sometimes categorize a man and broad brush situations while not understanding the context. And I felt that most times when as men, we don't recognize who we are and what we're about because we don't spend the time to sometimes pay attention to the details. Them said the devil is in the detail. I think the angels are there too. And I figure that as men, one of the things that we have to do in our relationships is to take a look at the details and don't gloss over things, but ask the right questions. Not for try to respond to the question, but try to understand it. And so even as a parent, no, I really ask not to try to give an answer or try to solve the problem, but to understand it first and try to appreciate it for what it is, and appreciate it from the perspective of the other person who's feeling it. And then from there, you find out how they want to solve it. Even if you have your own ideas and you have the solution, but is helping them to recognize and owning that solution. Even in my own job as an analyst, that's one of the things. We don't necessarily prescribe things to people anymore. We allow them to develop the solution and be a part of that solution from the start, from the get-go on to the end, so that they own it and it becomes theirs. So I realized that unlocking my relationship has been more about that and enriching that fellowship. And God plays a key role in all of this, I must say. And as a Christian man, unpacking those principles of the Word of God within that context is a challenge, I must say, because it's not a smooth journey. Because, as I said, we tend to show love in concrete actions by what we do in the practical, and sometimes a woman can't see love and connect to that sometimes because they can't relate to that. I find in terms of love languages may differ, and we have to figure out how the man wants to have him love and how he gives it and how the lady wants it, and I would say fine-tune the mechanisms to make sure that we both give and receive love in a way that we both appreciate it. The emotion of love is a very powerful one, and it takes time to I would say to express it, but it's a transient one because over time you find that you grow in terms of your ability to express it, because as your vocabulary expands in terms of your ability to understand and to learn and empathize, it gets better in terms of the way how you can communicate it. My wife used to complain about my tone in terms of how I used to talk to her before, in terms of the rough man tone, and now she can say, boy, she stopped quarreling and say, boy, all right, you sound all right. So, because I find that sometimes, the battle lines are drawn, you sound too commanding, kind of a thing. And I used to be of one that would say that, boy, they used to say, boy, you're rough enough. But it is a journey to understand and to empathize and to be able to change the style in terms of how you put across your ideas and emotions in a way that they can.
Quite a lot there to process. Doing for audience, the listeners, doing Taylor, and we want you to look at managing conflicts in this era. Yes, what are some of the pointers? Because there are men involved in intimate relationships. We're having intimate partner violence. We're having abuses in intimate relationships, including marriages. So we're going to ask you to share what you have learned and how you manage disagreements, whether they're small or large. I think we're just about time to take our final break. So I guess let us do that. This is Kevin Bailey, Courtney Morrison speaking to a very special guest, Dwayne Taylor. We'll take a break, then we'll be right back after this.
Man, integrity man, I am a man.
Pour yourself in us.
The season of Lent runs from Ash Wednesday through to the Easter weekend, and Christians all over the world will make various sacrifices and join extra prayers and special fasts in observance of the most sacred time on the Christian calendar. Love 101 once again joins the Escarpment Road New Testament Church of God for renewal of the mind. After all, this is the aim, that our minds will be changed and revelation for a new mindset will be achieved. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 11:05 a.m., on Tuesday at 9:45 a.m., and Saturdays at 12 p.m. for renewal of the mind.
A short reminder-direct devotional that will help to keep your mind focused on the Lenten season. Let us aim to be transformed and discern what the will of God is. Renewal of the mind, right here on the Family Station. Love 101.
Yourself in us.
It's time to accelerate. Get ready for the Woman Ignite Success Summit 2024, March 8 to 9, Jamaica, Pegasus, Kingston. 2 days of intense worship and conversations about building kingdom wealth, business, marriage, finding purpose, and more. Featuring from the U.S., author and business leader Nona Jones, business coach Dr. Latanya Moore, pastor and entrepreneur Sarah Connor, high-performance business coach Natalie Taylor, and much more. Woman Ignite Success Summit, March 8 to 9, Jamaica, Pegasus. Get tickets at womanigniteja.com. Powered by One Group, Visual Tech, Digital Video Concepts, and other partners.
Your taxes hold the key.
Let's get digital. Get online this March 15. File and pay your final income tax return for 2023 and estimated return for 2024. There are so many options. JamaicaTax.gov.jm, direct funds transfer, NCB online banking, and Scotia online and mobile app. Pay your taxes the digital way. All returns must be filed online and on time. Tax Administration Jamaica, changing the way we do business.
Every Thursday morning, Love 101 shares with you power-packed messages, words of encouragement, and testimonies of God's miraculous power. You get all of that in the Don't Give Up broadcast, brought to you by Celebration Church at the Portmore Skating Rink in the Portmore Mall with Pastor Prophet Michael Carter. Be sure to stay tuned to Love 101 for the Don't Give Up broadcast. Get the word you need to start your day right. The Don't Give Up broadcast, Thursdays at 5:15 a.m. It's on the Family Station, Love 101.
It's gonna be alright. Time come, time come for people power.
The time by the People's National Party is
18 minutes past 6. You're listening to the Mailbox. This is Love 101, your family station. I'm Pastor Courtney Morrison, sitting in with my co-host Kevin Bailey. We're interviewing Mr. Dwayne Taylor. We're talking about men and love. Dwayne has been telling us his story of himself and his wife, Jovian, 4 children, doing well. Mother was a Brazilian, so she's Jazilian. That's where that Jazilian comes from, Jamaica and Brazilian intertwined. But tell us a bit, Sir Dwayne. We left with you telling us a pragmatic and practical approach that you yourself took. How can we encourage our men to love families, to restore some of the things that we're seeing happening? Kevin was speaking about abuses, intimate partner violence, and what's happening on the domestic scene here in Jamaica. I mean, just today we saw a young man who has been arrested, who seemed to have, well, it's alleged that he was the one who burnt her and she had to receive burn treatment, but she's back in the island. How do we help in these areas? Tell us.
Wow. It's a lot. Let me just see if I can put some perspective. A lot of us don't actively listen, and active listening is a key component in terms of us recognizing and relating very well. I think when there's an absence of active listening, that's what I call one of those flashpoints for conflict to develop. Because we're different, we're interacting in the same space, so there are going to be things that we like, there are going to be things that we don't like about each other, or we're going to do things that is going to irk one another. But one of the more important things that I've recognized, even out of my own relationship, is to recognize that listening is key. Understanding that conflict is not about destroying each other. And I think in our culture, one of the things that we tend to figure out and we tend to fly to is to try to done somebody, try to finish them, try to out them out, right? So we end up committing acts of violence. One of the things that I've said, and even sometimes when I speak to men, I normally say, a weak man beat a woman. A weak man would need to try to control a woman. It's a weak man who will try to harm a woman. and have that kind of that unhealthy interaction. Why? Because he feels powerless. I think a lot of our men sometimes feel very powerless because they really don't know or don't understand how to express themselves verbally and emotionally. And with that, sometimes you tend to find it builds up what I call a complexity of ignorance. Man gets shot. Anger plays now becomes a strong emotion that is there. And I'm not saying anger, you can't be angry, but you find that because there is the lack of that proper expression, it's a challenge. You find too that because sometimes how the man grow rough. And I mean, a lot of in our society, we tend to say man have to grow rough, man have to rough, man have to tough. And it doesn't give an opportunity for a man to sometimes probe himself, get in touch with himself, get in touch with his emotion, understand how he's feeling, and develop that ability to express himself. So because of that, you tend to find there is that big issue. Another thing that you tend to find is this, that with the absence of sometimes that I call a good role model, a good male model to show you how it's done. And I think with boys are a little different in terms of how they relate and how they grow. You find that we learn more by example versus by just telling me something. Most of our mothers will tell us things, but they can't show us because they're not the man to show us, which is why I don't even believe in the mantra that my mother who fathered me, because it's almost impossible. A male is a male, a female is a female. You can't substitute the roles. There are different roles to be played and they have to be understood. The role of the man is changing over time, and you find that this is difficult. But one of the things that you find in terms of us to be communicating healthy, we have to recognize that we have to have a good tool or a good toolbox to work with, and that toolbox means that we are going to have to practice the tools and work the tools in order to become effective. And one of those is, how do we work this thing out together to get to the solution? One other thing I find is that we tend to jump more to want to represent what we want and try to impose what we want on the other person without giving the person opportunity to speak and to help them to articulate and for us to understand too sometimes. Because one of the things I find is this, that yes, we have strong emotions of anger, love, and joy, and sadness, and so on. But what I find is this is interesting, which is very, very powerful, and I see it many times in our society. We are prone to try to say that if it is that we don't win, or we can't win, or we don't have control of the situation, then we lose. And the idea is that there's no such thing.
Right.
And so the premise is that a lot of our men function because they are feeling that, guess what? And they have developed these, I would call it bad patterns or bad habits. Them just feel, say, yo, anything when me say, I saw it must go. Or if I don't get what I want, it means I must take action in terms of retaliating. And you find that that doesn't necessarily help. I think most times over my experience has been that you have to take time to listen, put your own emotions aside, put your own biases aside, calm yourself down, think about the thing from the other person's perspective, and try to understand it from their perspective. Because what I've found is this, that a lot of times, I may view a matter or I may feel about a matter, most times me wrong, me overreact. Me overreact,
Yes.
I'm taking it sometimes much more than what the person would have meant, or the person may have misunderstood what I have said, and they are responding out of that misunderstanding, and I'm just escalating the thing.
Yeah.
And so I find that one of the major things is, one, we have to recognize our style. I mean, different persons have different style in terms of their conflict management styles. I recognize that my style is the fact that I used to get out half the color and attack. And I realized that don't work. That don't solve the problem. I need to understand what is happening. And so it doesn't necessarily get me what I want. And I found that I was losing, not because not because I didn't have the ammunition to win the battle, but because I was making the wrong steps. And here is my 3-pointer in terms of resolving my own conflict. One of the first things I do, I recognize what my feeling is, and I own my own feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I own the feeling to say, this is how I feel about this particular matter. I don't try to hide it, I don't play it, I try to pass it off as something else. I call it what it is, recognize the emotion for what it is. And once I recognize that that emotion is there, I'm now better able to say, okay, fine, how am I going to deal with this emotion? Because it's not the person that caused me to feel the emotion. It is my response to what the person may have said or done that is causing me to feel this. One of the other things that I've done is to say, okay, fine, how can I help this person to understand me better? Because obviously there is a misunderstanding. And misunderstanding is a very, very, very mischievous lady in a relationship.
She is.
You understand? So I realized that, guess what? Try to understand, try to empathize and see what is happening and think about it. And I realized that I myself with enough information in terms of understanding. And one of the things now that I don't accuse my wife of doing anything at all. I ask a question, I am trying to understand. I really approach it from the point of me trying to understand the situation, because I really don't. I never did, and I really don't. And I'm not trying to bring myself into an understanding of what is she feeling, what is she seeing, what is happening, how is she perceiving the situation, how is she perceiving me. And then I now move from that to now say, okay, fine, how can I help her to understand me? How can I express myself in a way that she fully understands me and get me, so that I can get to my solution? Because I don't want a fight.
Right.
I don't want the animosity. And if I have a good fight and I knock her out, the truth is I still have the problem. Well, I don't have more than one problem. So the idea is, and I realize it in our own society, men tend to be very aggressive, and we tend to look at women as less than us. So one of the other things I do is I make the environment safe. I must be approachable to her, that she can feel free to talk to me and say anything to me, and I don't react. Only I cheat. Boy, all right, no problem. I mean, I go bless up the vessel and try to say, boy, why you do that for that kind of a thing? And so I have now been more watchful on my words and my own responses. And being in some counseling sessions too, you learn that, you have to learn to respond in a particular way. You can't express certain things in a certain way. You have to, quote unquote, be diplomatic. One of the things for us as Jamaican men, our aggression is spurred by anger, but the anger is not because of the person. The anger a lot of times is because of our incapacity. Either one, because we lose something, we don't have something, or we want something. And it most times that we take it out on the wrong person. And
by doing those points are quite interesting.
Yes.
But time has caught up on us. Anybody listening to you would say you're the most cool, calm, and collective, whichever one we use, male they have ever listened to. Honey, I've cheated. Okay. Anyway, we have to wrap up. It was a pleasure having you. We have to say thanks to you for being here, taking time out to share with us. Indeed, it's a privilege and an honor to have had you. We also are saying thanks to Dr. Nadine Blair, our Operations and Programs Manager, Jermaine Johnson, our producer, and Tamar Butler for technical support, Raquel Robertson, Digital Move Media. Indeed, we want to end the program with a quote: "A man ought to live so that everyone knows he is a Christian, and most of all, his family ought to know." Dwight L. Moody is the one who said that. Kev.
Yes, so catch you next week, Wednesday, February 28th, 2024, with the Men's Fellowship Tour. Same place, same time, inside the mailbox. So, what was that?
Next week.
Yeah.
Monday. This was a program designed for men with hosts who are men and whose guests are men. Celebrating 31 years with Love 101. Catch you next week.
Blessings, Dwayne. Thank you.
I am a man, yes. Strong man.